This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network and Fantasy Labs, presented by Yahoo Fantasy. I am your host, Chris Raybon, and today we're going to discuss some preseason risers and fallers. We're going to discuss our Yahoo Fantasy Flex event that we had, and that's why my voice, you might notice, is a little bit shaky because I think I was yelling a little too much there. But here to join me, one of the most accurate rankers in the game over the last decade plus, the odds maker Sean Koerner. Sean, thank you for taking time out from pouring one out for Greg Dulcich being cut from the Giants to join us here.
Yeah, well, like you said, maybe he ends up in Miami or something like that. But yeah, your voice is shot. My voice is still here, but I am still recovering from what was a fantastic weekend in Chicago, getting to hang out with you, everybody else, and our boy Ethan that's going to be joining us shortly.
Yeah, he had a really cool draft, so we're going to kind of break it down, and then we're going to talk preseason risers and fallers. But before we get into it, just want to let you guys know the Ultimate 2025 Fantasy Draft Kit is here. Sean Koerner and I have rankings, tiers, cheat sheets, and more to help you crush your fantasy football drafts that I know are coming up this weekend. New subscribers to Fantasy Labs NFL can use code FLEX20, that's FLEX20, for $20 off at fantasylabs.com/flex. That's 20 off with code FLEX20 at fantasylabs.com/flex. All right. We're going to jump into those preseason risers and fallers. I think some interesting developments. But first, we got to talk about our live event we had over the weekend in Chicago that's got my voice all scratchy, so excuse me again. But really excited to be joined here by a special guest, a winner that we chose Love Island style. We had 12-man draft, and we eliminated drafters one by one until we found a winner. And that winner was our guy, Ethan Isaacson. So Ethan, what's up, man? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast. How you enjoying that belt?
Oh, the belt is awesome. I got it right here for the viewers. Got the hardware, but yeah, it was a fantastic event. Appreciate you all hosting it. Great hospitality, and appreciate you all having me on the pod. Excited to be here today.
Oh yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about the draft that you had, and Sean as well, and we'll kind of go back and forth here. But we just thought it was an overall really great draft. So we had you guys draft have a 7-round draft with essentially filling your starting lineup spots on Yahoo, and you went with let me pull it up. So yeah, you started out with Puka Nacua, then Malik Neighbors, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, TJ Hawkinson, Jameson Williams, and Drake May. So just walk me through, being at that, you were picking 11. So did you have any strategy kind of going in, and did you, were Nacua and Neighbors kind of the guys you'd envisioned, or did you have any kind of plan just going into that 11th pick?
Yeah, so with that 11th pick, I was kind of targeting 2 receivers that I think are all kind of in a similar tier. You got Puka and Neighbors, who are very, very happy with, both I think great PPR players, great target shares historically and everything. But then I would have been happy with Collins and Thomas also, who both got taken at the turn by Lawrence, another drafter there. So I kind of viewed all of them sort of interchangeably and figured I would take who was there, maybe include a couple other guys in that tier as well, some possible fallers. But those were kind of the 4 main targets. I would say maybe Amon Ra as well would be like a 5th name that came to mind. So I kind of knew I wanted 2 receivers, but was open on the names, view them all pretty similarly.
Yeah, so one of the things that happened at the draft was, Raybon and I were commenting to each other. Sometimes we get on the mic and comment about the pick in front of the whole crowd there. But one of the things we noticed is every time we were like, oh, this guy should probably go now, you took him. Was there anybody specifically, like, who was your favorite pick of the draft, and who are you shocked that you ended up getting?
Yeah, I would say Jonathan Taylor at 35 in third rounds definitely felt like a surprising one to me. Feel like usually more of kind of a 2, 3 turn guy. So that definitely felt like kind of the best value. And that was one that I was kind of a run to the podium type where I felt very excited with Jonathan Taylor in the third round. I was watching some running back film lately, and he's just so dangerous in space. Not sure he gets viewed that way always. Sometimes gets viewed as more of like a power back, I feel like, but he is just so good in space at ripping off these long runs. I think we could see a big year, especially without Richardson maybe clogging up some of those touchdowns. I think it could be a big year for JT.
Yeah, I think he's just so good. He's kind of boring, and that's why he's being a little bit overlooked in drafts. But wanted to ask you about one of my favorite picks that you made, which was Drake May. This is a draft where everyone had to draft a starting lineup. So everyone had to draft a quarterback no matter what. So I thought it was kind of cool that, with your last pick, you waited till the end. So you're essentially doing late round quarterback, but you're also pretty aggressive and taking a guy who could outperform his ADP just because of that rushing ability. Was that kind of the thought there with Drake May, or what kind of led you to him over some of the other quarterbacks that were maybe a little higher at ADP?
Yeah, that was kind of the thought. And again, kind of some of the tier-based thinking, which kind of learned from you all over the years, a lot of it. If some of those quarterbacks were there at the 3-4 turn, 35, 38, maybe would have considered a Jaden Daniels, a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, something like that. But then after they were gone, didn't see as big a difference. Maybe Burrow hurt somewhere in between, but didn't see as big a difference between kind of the 6 and after range after that. So felt good about pushing it. And Drake May, I keep talking about ones like using more on the goal line. Could see a lot of rushing touchdowns there. Still don't love the receiving core. Think it might be hard for him to really push those passing stats super high, but think he's a talented player. Maybe even almost like Justin Fields-esque, but a better passer. So felt good about getting him at the end of the draft. I think there's definitely upside there, and little skeptical the passing comes this year, but I think there's just such big rushing upside that maybe it doesn't even need to.
Yeah, so we mentioned you had the 11th pick. So you were picking right before Lawrence there at the end there. And I thought Lawrence had a great draft. He was very aggressive with the 12th slot. You kind of have to be, because you don't really know who's going to make it back to you. So you got to just take your guys. We got to hang out with Lawrence at the event as well. Great guy. Thought he had a good draft. Were there any picks that Lawrence made where you're like, damn it, I wish I got that guy before he picked his 2 picks? Or were there any guys that he stole from you that you wanted to get?
Yeah, it actually happened throughout the draft, I'd say, maybe 2 or 3 times. First round, Brian Thomas, Nico Collins is probably going to take one of them at 14. Just trust the quarterback situation. Not injured right now, a little more than Neighbors, but do view them as all a tier. But those were probably the 2 guys I wanted most.
Yeah.
Then Josh Jacobs at pick 36, 37 went there. I was going to take him over Kyron. Just think the offense is a little safer. The role's a little more secure. Those sort of view them, again, similar tier. And then I was actually considering taking Bo Nix in the 6th, and maybe not back all the way to the 7th. And then I figured maybe a receiver that I would like would fall back to the 7th. But do you think Bo Nix maybe has a slightly better chance than Drake May, just kind of marrying that passing, that rushing? While May, I think, is more of a rushing bet. I think a good rushing bet, but I think Nix might be able to marry them a little more. And I think he's just kind of an underrated talent. He actually threw the longest pass in the NFL last year, Bo Nix, in air yards. So underrated talent, not just a noodle arm.
Yeah, I feel like Bo Nix he's had some ugly games, so a lot of people don't really respect him. And I mean, that's fair. He's only going into his 2nd year, but I feel like what you're saying is kind of true, because I have Bo Nix kind of, the way I look at him is like a league winner. He's going too high to be a sleeper, but because he has a little bit of rushing upside and his offense is getting better and he was pretty good last year, if he puts it all together, he could be that quarterback that jumps into that top 5 with those other guys that are pretty solidified. So yeah, I feel you on the Bo Nix swipe there, but you ended up with Jameson Williams and then Drake May. Out of those picks, Nakua Neighbors, Taylor Kyron, Hawkinson, J-Mo, and Drake May. Well, I guess besides Drake May, because you already kind of said he makes you a little bit nervous, but out of your other skill guys, non-quarterbacks, who makes you the most nervous?
I'd say probably Jameson Williams. think it's a good reminder to kind of know your format, this kind of Yahoo PPR format. And I play a lot of half PPR stuff also. And I think Jameson's a little bit stronger of a pick there. Doesn't get as many targets week to week, maybe a little more inconsistent. So I definitely see a breakout year from Jameson, and maybe a secondary breakout. Already sort of did it last year, but probably scares me the most in that there's a lot of mouths to feed there in Detroit. And last year, sometimes felt like you get a few targets early and then kind of fade out of the game plan. They did get up a lot last year. They'll probably have to throw more, which I think you all mentioned before could help out Jameson, and some contingent upside there as well. But do think someone like a Sutton there, a Zay Flowers there are also reasonable calls who are maybe more than number one target in their offense. If I could do it again, maybe would have picked one of those two, but I do feel good about Jameson and think there's definitely a big weekly ceiling there for sure.
Yeah, I would say probably if we would have ended up choosing somebody else, it would have probably been the JMO pick that would have done you in. But at that point, I still like the aggressiveness for JMO, and I think sometimes we even overrate PPR, half PPR a little bit. Like there are differences, but at the end of the day, JMO's a guy who, he's gonna put up yardage and touchdowns, and those are still the things that I think are gonna drop. Like you don't want a guy that's just catching extra passes and they're just like empty catches. So, but I agree. Sutton and Flowers kind of stand out. But this was before Sutton probably raised his stock a little bit more by going crazy in the preseason game, I think. Or was it the same day? It might have been happening. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. He had a pretty nice preseason game. So I won't knock it. But yeah, there were some guys that went after that you could argue for. But overall, great draft, Ethan, and had a lot of fun with you and all the other people. Shouts to Mike, Cody, Tim, Nick, David, Brett, Max, the Wilson, Seth, Lawrence, of course, Mrs. Oddsmaker, and Will, Cody. So just a lot of fun, Sean. And thank you again, Ethan, for joining us, and congrats on the win. And our producer, Matt Mitchell, man, I've never seen him talk about something as much as that belt. So enjoy that belt, man.
Yeah, appreciate you all having me on. It was a great event, and yeah, two of the best in the business here. When they speak up, I listen. So glad everyone else listening on the podcast is too.
Appreciate you. All right, Sean, let's jump into some preseason risers and fallers. Quarterback, who's rising, Sean?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with a couple quarterbacks at different stages in their career. And first up would be Joe Flacco, who is still in our lives. He's still in my season-long spreadsheet after all these decades. But, I mean, there's no denying his stock has been going up. Recently, he was announced the week one starter, which wasn't too surprising, but we weren't sure how they were going to handle their 4 to 5 quarterback rotation here. But he's the week one starter. Shedeur Sanders, had a pretty rough second game of his preseason, which we'll talk about in our faller section. But, Kenny Pickett was traded to the Raiders. And, I don't think Dylan Gabriel is really the long-term answer at quarterback. They took him in the third round. He looks all right. But the chances of Joe Flacco getting to start 10-plus games has gone way up these past, few days. And you never know what you're going to get with him. Maybe he reverts back to that 2023 version we saw on the Browns. That would be exciting. Not really to target Flacco specifically, but for his pass catchers. Guys like Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, Harold Fannin Jr. Would be more interesting if, he were to return to that form. And, he looked pretty solid in his lone game last week. He went 9 for 10 for 71 yards and a touchdown. So, hate to say it, but Flacco's stock is up. But more importantly, Jackson Dart stock is way up. Russell Wilson's still expected to go week one. Like you've been saying, I don't think he's long for this world, especially how good Dart looked in preseason. I was shocked just how quickly it looks like Dart adjusted to the NFL. You're never sure when you see these quarterbacks come from gimmicky schools like Ole Miss, but I mean, he looked excellent. Yeah, it was against, second, third stringers, but that's not his fault that he's playing.
Shedeur Sanders is playing against second and third stringers too.
That's true. Yeah. Dart looked way better than Sanders, that's for sure. But, he completed 68% of his passes, 372 yards, 3 touchdowns on just 53 dropbacks. again, he has massive rushing upside, 6 carries for 52 yards and a touchdown. You're starting to see a lot more people compare him to early Josh Allen. That's kind of what I've been saying. He has that type of ceiling, and Brian Dable was the offensive coordinator for Josh Daniel when he did break out. So I'm loving the situation, and he'll probably start when ready, which could be sooner than later. So he's one of the guys that he offers QB1 upside as soon as he, starts making starts, and you could still get him super late. So, his stock has definitely been going up throughout the entire preseason.
Yeah, Dart is. I just thought this was going to be obvious. I'm surprised. I mean, it's still cut day. We got we're recording this. We still got about an hour and a half for them to be like, Russell Wilson cut or traded. But I wouldn't be 100% surprised. But I think they will go with Russ. I mean, he had a pretty decent preseason himself. It's just that they're kind of, you could see where Russ, it's going to be a lot of, it's either going to be deep balls or check downs, or I think Dart can just hit more of the field is open to him, which is important for the Giants because, Malik Neighbors is going to get a lot of coverage thrown his way. So a quarterback that can see the field and run and is willing to run, I think is going to be big. So yeah, I would expect Dart to start. I mean, it was like 6 games that Fields played before Wilson took over. I put the line around there, but probably less before Dart ends up taking over because we've all seen Russ, and the Giants got a pretty tough schedule. So yeah, I think Dart's rising. Running back, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, man, he's rising. You got him in our rookie draft, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I took him first pick.
Oh man, yeah, that was
that was before
already crushing me. Damn it!
That was before the Brian Robinson Jr.
Yeah, I mean, that was good. Good foresight because, I mean, I haven't looked at the. Again, we're recording this as in the last hour and a half before all cuts are official. I haven't seen any news on Chris Rodriguez, but the fact that he was playing in that last preseason game, while Eckler and Bill, aka Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, rested, means that he could end up getting cut as well. But I think either way, they didn't cut Brian Robinson Jr. because Chris Rodriguez is on the roster. Mm-hmm. So this guy Krosky-Merritt, and interestingly enough, Krosky-Merritt, he's quick, he makes decisive cuts and whatnot, but he kind of profiled coming out of school as downhill runner, 2 down, early down guy. So essentially, he's just a what they view him as a better Brian Robinson Jr. So I think he could see kind of a similar role to Brian Robinson Jr. I know some people are kind of like, stash Chris Rodriguez, and he started the game before, but we've seen these teams, they got to put these guys, they got to showcase these guys like Tank Bigsby. They're talking about trading him. Mm-hmm. So of course they're going to start him the game before, that he sits out. So yeah, I think Bill is a top 30 running back. I think he's viewed as a better runner, better fit for the offense than Brian Robinson. And I was always down on Brian Robinson. This year I was actually like, you know what? Brian Robinson actually might ball out. Like he just has to stay healthier than he did last year. His offense is pretty good, but obviously, so I'm high on this guy too, if they think he's even better. But who do you like? Who's rising for you at running back?
Yeah, so first up for me would be Ollie Gordon. His value just continues to go up with, Achane's banged up. It sounds like he's probably good for week 1. We'll have to monitor that, but
nothing's good in Miami. Nothing.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so we'll see. Still, over a week until that happens. But Jalen Wright, I think he's unlikely to play week 1 now. Yeah, so he's out, but he probably lost his backup job already. And Alexander Madison had that neck injury, so he's out for the season. I thought he was Gordon's competition for the goal line back role. So I think Ollie Gordon, he looks sharp in preseason. 26 carries, 126 yards, short yardage touchdown where he jumped over the offensive line. Jalen Wright, I think he had like 4 straight runs, get stuffed on the one. Gordon's 6'1".
Like every career carry gets stuffed, not on the one as well.
Well, that's true. Yeah, even on their own 20, he's getting stuffed. Yeah. That's my point. I think he's cooked. So I think Gordon's the backup to own right now, and he could be the goal line back even when Achan's healthy. He's 6'1", 226. He was like a legit Heisman candidate in 2023. Just had a down year last year, so we've seen him flash massive upside. And yeah, maybe this team's in the shitter. I saw Mike McDaniel's like the favorite to be the first coach fired, but he would thrive in that kind of chaos. So I think he's definitely the backup to own now, not Jalen Wright. So Gordon's stock has been just climbing up for 3 straight weeks now. Jaden Blue has been an interesting ride for me as a I think ever since he landed in Dallas, I've just kind of been thinking Jaden Blue was a sneaky flyer, but just given how awful this Dallas running back room is, and it just keeps getting worse because Javonte should be the week 1 starter. I think that's a given. But after that, who the hell knows? Miles Sanders is dealing with the shoulder injury. Phil Maffa he's going to be placed on the IR with the shoulder injury, and Deuce Vaughn was cut. And Jaden Blue, he's been dealing with some injuries throughout preseason, but we finally got to see him this week, and I thought he looked sharp, and he had that big boy touchdown near the goal line. Unfortunately, he tweaked his ankle again. There's nothing he could do about that, but he's already back at practice, so it's like he's quickly overcoming these injuries that might knock a player out longer. So I've been impressed by the limited action we've seen and his quick recovery so far. So I kind of like that he's still kind of under the radar, given he's been dealing with injuries and didn't play much in preseason. So just given how this backfield's shaping up, I like him even more heading into the season. Now, they're a team that could end up trading for a guy like Tank Bigsby, and that'll throw a wrench into my plans. But as of now, just given the state of this depth chart and how good I think Blue could be, he's been on the rise for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny to me that the team that was giving carries to Ezekiel Elliott last year and then decided to replace him with Dalvin Cook for a couple games has now like just put Javonte Williams on ice for the entire preseason. Like he's just so far ahead of the crowd here. What could go wrong? All right, wide receiver. Who's rising at wide receiver for you this preseason?
Dante Thornton, for sure. The buzz around him has been growing for weeks now. People are speculating he could be the top receiver on the Raiders already. He played with the starters this final week of the preseason with Geno Smith and went 2 catches, 26 yards, and a touchdown. He can win downfield. He's definitely a downfield threat. So I think it's a good fit with Geno Smith. I think he's going to have a role either way. But now, with Jacoby Myers requesting a trade, the Raiders are saying that they're not going to trade him now. Who knows what's going on there? That would seriously open things up for Thornton. So his stock was shooting up yesterday. And then they signed Amari Cooper. And then so people are like, oh, I guess we're out on Thornton. Did anybody watch Amari Cooper last year? He might be cooked. So I don't think he's really a threat for Thornton. Not if you're, investing in Thornton's upside in deeper leagues or dynasty formats. He still has a ton of upside heading into this year. So I thought Thornton specifically this week, his stock went up in my eyes. It'll go up even more if, Myers does get traded. So we'll have to monitor that. But a guy that's already being drafted very early, his stock's going up, and that's Courtland Sutton. I know you're already high on him, but he's been going up in my projections, just given how high of a floor I think he has at this point. The starters played 3 drives, and Sutton got 7 targets for 4 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Just showing, he's the clear alpha in this offense. But I think people might be discounting how good Bo Nix might actually be heading into year 2. We were talking to Ethan about that, the draft we had over the weekend. But, I mean, that could really unlock Sutton's ceiling, just how good Nix can get this year. And not too worried about Evan Ingram right now. It looks like he's not going to be a full-time player like people were saying. We kind of hinted at that. But Sutton is the clear alpha in this offense. So he's just going to carry a high floor and, a high ceiling along with that. So Sutton's been moving up in my ranks. I just think he's a solid wide receiver 2 in that range where there's a lot of guys with question marks. I have 0 question marks around Courtland Sutton.
I freaking hate Sean Payton, Like, everyone else, he's going to rotate in and out and in and out. So why does he have to give Courtland Sutton like a chance to erupt in the preseason and like raise his ADP? Like,
True,
it's like we knew, or at least like I knew Courtland Sutton was going to be like, you know what I mean? I think like he's one of those guys that I feel like everyone kind of like Kyron Williams, like everyone wants to write him off, but then it's like, but he's actually good. So yeah, I mean, this was actually bad news for anyone who wanted to draft him, because now there's no way you're getting him at a discount. Right? He's pretty valuable with the way that like that there's that frozen pond tier of wide receivers with Marvin Harrison and Garrett Wilson, and I mean I put Devontae in that tier as well. So like I mean I like getting Sutton a little later than those guys, and now he's kind of right there. So he's definitely going to rise. Shouldn't be, but because his value didn't really change, but he's definitely on the rise. And I think Marvin Mims is actually a guy who, like, because of the preseason developments, his stock should be rising, because last year, second half of the year, he was the wide receiver, 26 in PPR, 28 in half. And he only played 31% of the snaps, ran a route just under 40% of the time. In the preseason, he ran a route on over 90% of the dropbacks and was on the field for the same amount of time. So that's interesting, because Troy Franklin, more of the number 3 guy, who was like a 65% guy, and then they traded Vele, but that would just more so open things up for Bryant, it seems, at this point, or Franklin, because Bryant didn't really play any snaps with the starters. So it looks like Mims is just going to be an every down player. If he is, I mean, he could triple his snap count from a time when he was the wires, like inside the top 30. Yeah. So like, even though I don't think anyone in Denver outside of Sutton will be very consistent from week to week, where Mims is going, I would take a shot on him. I mean, he's still going outside the top 50 receivers, and there's a chance he just every week he's just erupting with a big play, and he gets like 10 chances to do it because he's on the field like 100% of the time. So I thought that development was quite interesting. It might be flying a little under the radar because he didn't make as many, like, he didn't make any like big plays. Like, he didn't have the 58-yard catch or the big game like Sutton did. So I think Mims is someone that's trending up for me. And of course, my guy Matthew Golden as well. For Green Bay, it seems like all of their receivers except him and Romeo Doubs are banged up. And Golden, he was already running with the ones in 2 wide receiver sets all camp. Did that in the preseason. Did it in the third game. Caught a 39-yard pass from Malik Willis. Jordan Love should be back week 1. So, I think Golden's continuing to trend up.
Yeah, I love Golden. And again, like, he's going in a range where I think it makes sense to kind of take a flyer on a rookie wide receiver. And he's probably going to be the top target for the Packers this year. So that's why, Tet McMillan, love him as a talent, but he's going way, way earlier than Golden. And Golden looked great on that, 39-yard catch. Love his upside. And I still think he's being slept on. Just considering you can get him most of the time outside of the top 40 still.
You know what's interesting too? He's actually rising. So according to Fantasy Pros, he's up to 41. He started the preseason at 46. So he might, by the time people are listening to this, he might be inside the top 40. But what I think is interesting is over the past 7 seasons, rookie wide receivers taken around 1 who have an ADP outside the top 30, they've beat their ADP 66% of the time, like 2/3 of the time. So Hunter's still going outside the top 30, Abuka, and Matthew Golden. Ted is the only guy going inside. So I would take all those guys over Ted. Not that he can't produce too, but I just think from a value standpoint.
Yeah, we're not really shitting on Tet. It's just like all these guys have similar upside. Just give me the guy that you can get a little bit later. That's all it is when it comes down to Tet.
All right, let's close it out with tight ends for risers. We got
the first guy is a rookie. I think his stock's been going up, but it's Harold Fannin Jr. When 2 catches for 16 yards and a touchdown in his final preseason game. But I think it was important to note that he caught his 15-yard touchdown from the week 1 starter, Joe Flacco. I mean, it was a hospital ball. If it was anywhere but the end zone, I think Fannin wouldn't have appreciated that throw, that placement. But he caught it for a touchdown. And I just think given the state of the Browns wide receiver room, they're going to be using a lot more 2 tight end sets this year. Fannin Jr. might be essentially like a wide receiver, like a slot receiver, like a Brock Bowers. I think that's how they might view him as a rookie. So love his upside to just find ways to get on the field, even when Njoku's healthy. But if David Njoku misses time, I think Fannin Jr. could offer tight end 1, low end tight end 1 value, especially if Flacco reverts to his 2023 version with the Browns. So Fannin Jr. is a guy that's been creeping up my ranks. And the other guy would be Cade Otton. You know, a lot of the buzz has been around Emeka Egbuka and his stock going up, which is certainly warranted with Chris Godwin looking like he's going to miss extended amount of time, and then Jalen McMillan looking like he's going to miss at least half the season. You know, Cade Otton's going to benefit as well, and that's why I mentioned Cade Otton on our league winner pod last year, how his 2 years as the starting tight end in the league, he'd yet to play a game with either Mike Evans or Chris Godwin out. And then he had a stretch last year where both were out at the same time, and I was projecting him inside my top 5. So he's a guy that you have to remember he also benefits if Chris Godwin and a Jalen McMillan type are out. You know, certainly Mike Evans and Egbuka are going to be the top 2 targets, but if either one of them miss time as well, you know, Otton's only going to go up in my weekly projections. So he's a guy that, you know, he's still more of a high-end tight end too, but I think he has a path to more early season targets than he did a couple weeks ago. So his stock has been climbing up as well.
Yeah, it's so like Joe Mixon and Godwin were the 2 where it was just like, I feel like these teams, they knew what was going on with these guys.
Yeah.
Just did not really reveal it, because the more you're looking at Godwin, I mean, we'll talk about him later, but it just was not an injury that you would think somebody would come back from. Like, it's looking less and less surprising that they even took Egbuka in the first round, the more you look into it. So, yeah, I think Otton set up to benefit once again. For me, it's Mason Terror of the Jets. You know, he's always been kind of a weird ride this preseason, but started to get snaps with the starters, and now it feels like Ruckert's on the roster, but we might even be cut by the time we record this. But, you know, he was essentially playing with the you know, second and third team in the, you know, preseason games that Taylor played after. I think they played together for a little bit, but clearly Taylor is viewed as the future, and this new regime looks like they're not playing any games. I mean, they already cut like all the other holdovers, like Kuntz, and Malachi Corley's gone after 1 year. So I think that's good news for all the you know, the kind of the new guys they brought in. You know, I'm sure a guy like Alan Lazard's probably not going to do much either. I know he's supposedly healthy, but he's essentially a tight end at this point. Too, and with no Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I think Mason Taylor, I don't know if it'll translate into consistent fantasy value, even if you're in 2 tight end leagues, you know, because Justin Fields, I mean, it could be Garrett Wilson or scramble pretty much every time, and Breece Hall could still get a lot of targets if he's on the team, which it seems like he will be. So, but Taylor definitely, I think he's moving back up. And I thought Ferguson too for the Rams. I know he was hurt, so that was probably why he was playing in that last preseason game with all the other guys who aren't going to make the roster. But he looked really good on his 2 catches. You get a chance to see Terrence Ferguson at all?
Yeah, he looked good. Again, we kind of talked about Tyler Higbee potentially being a sleeper pick. I thought they brought in Ferguson to kind of like bolster their depth. So I like him 2026 and beyond. But if Higbee were to miss time, I think he could step in. Really, just any Rams tight end like a Higbee or Ferguson, if they get a full-time role, could offer tight end with value. It's tricky to project them when they're both healthy. But I love Ferguson long-term, and it was nice to see him out there. And yeah, he looked solid.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're recording this as roster cuts are happening, and there could always be moves. But I thought it was interesting that they kept Colby Parkinson out for the entire preseason as well, because he didn't really play that well last year. He kind of lost what should have been his job, like a full-time job. They kind of started splitting snaps at tight end near the end of the year. So I almost wonder if maybe they're thinking about trading him. I know he's got a pretty big contract that he got last year, but as good as Ferguson looked, I don't see how you keep him off the field as, kind of like the receiving version of your tight end group. And that would kind of make Parkinson expendable. So look out for that. But we'll get into stock fallers in a second. But before we do, let's get into a quick segment presented by Yahoo Fantasy on rookie sleepers. Sean, we've done this in our positional rookie report episodes, but of all the upcoming rookies, now that we're done with the preseason, who is your top sleeper or the rookie that you are most excited to watch this season?
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to stick with Jaden Blue, who I've viewed him as a sleeper pick ever since he landed in Dallas, just given their running back depth being really shaky. And that's still the case heading into week 1. They haven't added anybody yet. We'll see if anything changes. But as of now, it looks like Javonte Williams will be the week 1 starter. I don't think he's long for this world. I think it's only a matter of time until he loses his job to someone like Jaden Blue. And Jaden Blue is still kind of under the radar because he's been banged up in camp, only played a limited amount in preseason, which was the final week. And I thought he looked great. And he also scored a short yardage, big boy touchdown. So I just loved what I saw in limited time. And again, it won't take much for him to, leapfrog everybody on this depth chart and potentially be the starting back for the Cowboys. So I still think he's pretty sneaky in drafts right now.
For me, it's Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt of the Commanders. This is the last running back taken in the draft, and it could end up being the number 1 fantasy back in the draft, or at least the number 1 value, because he essentially made the Commanders trade Brian Robinson Jr. He's reportedly had a great camp. We saw it on display with I think it was a 27-yard touchdown run on his first carry against the Bengals. So excited to watch this guy. I thought the Commanders got great production out of all their running backs last season, kind of better production than they were known for, including Robinson, including a guy like Jeremy McNichols. Thought Chris Rodriguez flashed last year as well. Eckler was efficient. So excited to see what this guy could do, given that I thought Robinson probably had his best season last year as well. So Jaden Blue, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, those are your rookie sleepers for the Fantasy Flex presented by Yahoo Fantasy. And as a reminder, this episode of the Flex is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. And with the NFL season just around the corner, fantasy is taking over. Everyone's researching, drafting, putting together their championship squad. So if you have not joined a league yet, now is the time. And it is all happening over at Yahoo Fantasy. That's where Sean and I are playing this year. And you should too. So whether you are a first timer or a veteran making your 1 millionth league, it's time to jump in. The season starts September 4th. So now is the time to start playing on Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. If you want more ways to play, try the new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets chopped each week. If you want to play instantly with friends, try the new Draft with Friends mode. And if you prefer the classics, you could get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. Looking for a new crew to join? Try a public league, the easiest way to play and make new friends. It's all possible with Yahoo Fantasy. So get started and play now at yahoofantasy.com/flex. One more time, that's yahoofantasy.com/flex. All right, stock down, Koerner. Got to pour one out for my boy.
Oh, yeah. Anthony Richardson. Yeah, let's talk about him because, there's no denying, his stock took a massive hit with the team announcing Daniel Jones won the starting job. I thought he would have to really bomb for that to happen, but it has happened. They didn't let him play in week 3 of the preseason, which was odd to me because he simply just needs more reps, more playing time. That was kind of the knock on him, is he didn't get much playing time in college. And then he's been, banged up so much. He's missed a lot of time at this level. So I just thought getting him as much work as possible in the preseason made sense. They didn't do that. So bad vibes there. Maybe he ends up with another team and becomes like a project, maybe like a Trey Lance situation where, who knows, he'll be somewhere else next year and look better. But as of now, there's no denying his stock is down. Same thing with Russell Wilson, who really hasn't done anything wrong at this point. But given the fact that Jackson Dart has looked so good, I think I'm projecting Wilson to be, benched sooner than later for Dart. I think it's going to be really tough for Wilson to hang on to this job. I think you've been alluding to that all offseason at this point. So just given how good Dart looked in preseason, Russell Wilson's stock is down as a result.
Oh, man, breaking news. I know there's a stock down, but your guy Torrey Horton's stock just went up because the Seahawks released what I think was his main competition, at least early in the year, for a role. Yeah, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So, and also stock down at quarterback, Tyler Shucks. Saints announced Spencer Rattler as the week 1 starter. But for some of these guys, it almost feels like for a guy even for Daniel Jones, it almost feels like this just makes it so they'll bomb sooner. I just feel like once they bomb, it's like Daniel Jones. Once he bombed last year, he was just off the team for the Giants. So
yeah,
I don't know
if Daniel Jones bombs, is there a chance they just go with Riley Leonard at this point?
I think they might. I was thinking about that too. It depends what happens, because I did notice too that they held Richardson out, which means they either are looking to trade him or this is still just what I thought it was going to be, which is they're still trying to play the long game, and because they are talking about his work ethic and consistency, all these things that he could in theory improve upon. It's not like he was like Daniel Jones ran circles around him as in their brief preseason snaps. So. I'm until he's off the roster, I would assume that he's probably going to make starts too. But Rattler, he's interesting. I thought Shuck actually looked pretty good on the ground. He had 2 runs for 20 yards. He got a little frisky on the ground there, but nevertheless, his stock is down because Rattler's the starter. So just thought I'd mention that. But getting back to Russ, we were talking, right?
Yeah. Just, again, Russ, like you said, he looked all right in preseason, but just how well Dart looked, I don't think he's long for this world.
Yeah, it's and then Jameis Winston. He's probably not getting any snaps, or he's getting traded, or something. He's just a clipboard guy.
Well, they released DeVito, right? So Jameson is there for now, but that was a fun duo. Winston, Dart, and DeVito. That was fun. I wish they just cut Wilson and just, I don't know, start Winston at least. Just give us some memeable games. But yeah, well, the DeVito era is over, unfortunately.
I don't know if he'll actually get claimed though. He's had some pretty bad regular season snaps as well, so he might end up on the practice squad. We'll see. But a couple other guys at quarterback. I think Baker Mayfield trended down just because first it was the news of Godwin, then it was the news of McMillan, and of course you always had Liam Cohen leaving, which could have an effect that to what degree we don't know. So I just think overall, Mayfield was already kind of in a weird spot in drafts where, he's not a rushing quarterback, but he's not Mahomes or Burrow, and then there's more running quarterbacks to go after him. So it's kind of he could single-handedly be the pros and cons tier of quarterbacks this year. I think his stock is on the decline, and then Shedeur Sanders. I don't know if it should have ever been high. But of course, he got to play some snaps in the first preseason game against third stringers, and he looked good. And then came back and did it again. And people are talking about he got sabotaged because the Browns cut 4 of the 5 linemen that were blocking for him on one of those bad sacks. They should have also cut the quarterback. That these guys get cut. The guys that are playing in the third preseason game. At the point Shedeur was tend to get cut. But I thought it was kind of cruel how they just didn't let Shedeur finish the 2-minute drill just to get some better stats. He finished with negative 27 net passing yards on 11 dropbacks. So, but now about how I thought Shedeur would play this year, given how much he slipped in drafts. but we'll see. I don't think Gabriel's anything special. I'm with you on that. And I don't think Flacco, I don't know if he can last the season. So we could still be seeing Shedeur Sanders starts with Pickett traded to the Raiders for your boy, AOC, who's out for half the year too.
Pour one out for him too.
Speaking of your boys, Isaac Guerrero, man, what's going on?
Well, yeah, Guerendo's stock definitely took a hit. I thought he was the clear handcuff to Christian McCaffrey, which is always valuable because not only does McCaffrey tend to miss huge chunks of time occasionally, but this is a system, a scheme where Kyle Shanahan usually just goes to the next man up. We saw that with Jordan Mason last year. But the fact that they traded to get Brian Robinson Jr., I think he's probably going to be the number 2 back now. Anything can still happen. Plus, you could have McCaffrey and Brian Robinson Jr. get hurt, miss time, and I think it'd still be Guerendo would step up. But, he's not really a bench stash anymore, in my view. Once you have that added back, that makes things murky. I'm going to cut bait in leagues where I can. So Guerendo's stock took a huge hit. Jalen Wright's stock also took a huge hit. I had him as, the backup or the handcuff to Devon Achane. Very talented back. I think they took him in the 3rd round last year, but just he hasn't done much whenever given the chance. And I think Ollie Gordon has looked much, much better. And Wright's, he's now expected to miss week 1. So I think he lost the backup job and he's not even healthy. So Jalen Wright's a guy I've removed off my running back upside chart. I think Ollie Gordon's now the Dolphins back up to take, who has some upside. So, Jalen Wright's stock has taken a tumble these last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the writing was on the wall. He had a pretty bad rookie season, and when you're a guy with really one talent, which is speed, that should show up, and it just didn't at all last year. Yeah. So you could probably say the writing was on the wall, but I think Robinson's stock, Brian Robinson Jr. stock, I mean, his stock fell as well just because he was going inside the top 30, and there was a lot of question marks around some of the other backs in that range. I mean, a lot of rookies, a lot of uncertain workloads for guys. So I thought Robinson Jr., if he was going to reprise the role he had last year, was one of the safer picks. And now he is going to be, Shanahan did come out eventually and say he's going to be our number 2 back for a while. I thought some beat writers speculated that Guerendo could still be the number 2, but Shanahan did clear that up. So it looks like he's going to get to go there. But still, that's more of somewhere in the RB, same range as Guerendo was, around somewhere between RB 40 and 50-ish for Robinson Jr. Still more upside than maybe most backups because McCaffrey could miss some time, but also Robinson Jr. is not even as good as Guerendo in the passing game. And that's, I think, why I know that's one of the reasons why Cliff Kingsbury and the Commanders felt okay with letting him go is they feel that they want guys who, can play out of the shotgun, can play, can be a bigger factor in the passing game. So Robinson Jr. stock took a major hit. And then I'm curious as to this guy because I thought he looked good. This next guy, I thought he looked good, but I didn't like his how he was rotating in. And that's rookie Caleb Johnson for the Steelers. He was expected to just take over the Najee role. I think you and I thought that was kind of a done deal. And then Kenneth Gainwell just popped up as he was playing 3rd downs, he was playing early downs, he was playing before Johnson, and then Jalen Warren was rested with the starters, and then he started, but then he fumbled. I thought Johnson looked better than all of them, but at times. But I also thought Gainwell looked pretty good. So, what do you think is going to happen with this backfield? Is it Warren that's going to kind of play himself out of a role, or should we change nothing, or do we have to kind of bump up Gainwell and bump down Johnson or Warren or both?
Yeah, it's who the hell knows. I kind of said this, I think, last week, but Gainwell's going to be kind of a thorn in the side of both Warren and Caleb Johnson. And, Caleb Johnson's sort of pigeonholed into that early down role. So we kind of need him to be the full Najee back here. And so any uncertainty heading into week 1 doesn't make me feel great. I think it does seem like Jalen Warren will start the season as a lead back, but I agree. I think Caleb looked good. I think he has a ton of upside. I don't love that his ADP is still inside the top 30. I wish this sourness happened a few weeks ago and his ADP fell outside the top 30. I think it all depends on where you get him, because when you're taking him inside the top 30, you kind of need him to be relevant sooner than later. So this definitely worries me. But I think by, the second half of the season, it would not shock me if Caleb is the lead back in more of the Najee role, maybe more upside, because he is talented. So I think if you have him, I wouldn't panic quite yet, but certainly the early in the season, I don't know if you could trust him. But I wouldn't overreact too much of the first few weeks. I think it's going to sort itself out, and the cream will eventually rise to the top. But this is why I've been saying, like, I was pissed that, how sharp the market was by having him so high, because this is a good situation for him. I just might take a few games for him to really prove himself.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe a guy like Warren could be a trade candidate. I know they did use 3 backs at times because Cordell Patterson last year, and we've seen Arthur Smith do this. Remember that year he had Caleb Huntley in addition to, it was like Patterson, I think, and Algier, and then Caleb Huntley was like another early down back who would get like 8, 9, 10 carries, 0 catches. But it was like, I was like, oh man, is this going to devolve into that kind of situation? That would just be not ideal for anybody
2022.
Involved. Yep.
Yeah, that was like, looks like Patterson went down, so Caleb stepped up. But yeah, I mean, Arthur Smith is known for having murky situations where you always hesitate buying the most expensive back in that room, right?
Yeah, but it's just like there's like essentially 2 Steeler backs going inside the top 30 or top 35. Yeah. So it's like it's even more dicey because Gainwell looked pretty good and they signed him. So like the fact that they signed him and are rotating him in like pretty frequently is kind of worrisome. But it's been kind of I haven't really seen any Steeler beat writer take a major stand either way on this. I think everyone's kind of just trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do. So yeah, not an ideal situation, but I'm try to kind of avoid it if I can, just because I mean, it's still the Steelers. I don't trust them offensively that much. Like they're going to rely on their defense, push come to shove. Oh, Cam Scatterbu, I thought his stock fell a little bit just because he missed so much time. I know he came back in that 3rd preseason game, which, good news for him overall, but he might start the year, 3rd on the depth chart. And I think Tracy has played well and kind of distanced himself too. And Singletary just going to kind of be an annoying, kind of like the Gainwell, which is an annoying veteran in between. That's going to take time for Scatterbu to kind of work his way up the depth chart. So I thought, I think there's better high upside bets that go where he goes, like just inside the top 40 or just higher floor guys. So he's kind of in a no man's land for me, draft wise, where he's not like a straight up do not draft kind of guy, but I do think he's a little overvalued. I don't know what I would really do with him early in the year because I think he's going to start as that number 3 back. Wide receiver, who's fallen for you in the preseason at wide receiver, Sean Koerner?
Yeah, so the less exciting one to start would be Michael Wilson. He's always more of a sleeper pick in deeper leagues, daily fantasy. But it sounds like he's been leapfrogged by Zay Jones, and Greg Dortch will obviously command some slot snaps. So this is just something I noticed when I was doing my week 1 projections. Is Michael Wilson's stock has been kind of going down the past couple weeks, but DJ Moore, his stock I think is also trending down. He's a guy that I know you and I. He's been kind of tricky to project. I think he does have a wide range of outcomes, but he played 27 of the 28 snaps with Caleb under center this week, and only caught 1 pass for 14 yards, and it was on a play. It was like a 3rd and a mile, which is not great. And it was the Roma Dunze show, who went off for 5 catches, 45 yards and a touchdown. That's kind of been the drumbeat all camp. I've always thought Odunze and Loveland were probably the best ways to invest in the Bears offense, or at least the passing attack this year. Moore could push wide receiver 1 value if he does get like the Amon-Ra role, but I don't think it's apples to apples like people think it is when it comes to this. I think it's going to be more spread out, and that's going to hurt the guy that's being drafted the highest, which is DJ Moore. Plus, I'm seeing that he's getting more and more work in the backfield, I can go either way on that. If they have Deebo Samuel-like plans for him, that would be good. But it's a kind of a concern that Ben Johnson's still trying to figure out ways to use him, and Odunze could be, the top receiver in this version of the offense. So DJ Moore's a guy that, in my model, I've been kind of trending down a bit just based on these past couple weeks.
What about Caleb? Because I feel like all of these offseason developments kind of reflect poorly on Caleb as well. Because, like, if let's say Rome Odunze is his number one receiver, that's probably just going to make him less efficient. Because Roma, like with Moore, there are ways to kind of scheme him high percentage looks. Where I feel like Odunze, if he's kind of that alpha, it's going to be more stuff where Caleb starts having those weird throws that land like 6 feet from the receiver at times. So do you think are you still as high on Caleb as you were at the start of camp, or have you kind of knocked him down a little bit too?
No, I'm about the same, and you're right. This all does hinge on Caleb Williams. Let's be real about that. And I think Odunze being his top target, I would not have a problem with that at all. They weren't on the same page last year, but again, they were in feet, inches of greatness. And if they can clean that up specifically with Odunze, I think that's going to help unlock Caleb and vice versa. So we'll see. It's always tricky to kind of read too much into camp and things like that, especially when you have a quarterback like Caleb learning a new offense. It might even take a couple weeks for it to really click. So who knows? But I think overall the upside is still there for Caleb to be a top 10 quarterback with his rushing upside. And if things do click with everybody and Rome Odunze does have a year or two breakout, I think that's all still very possible.
Yeah, it's just I feel like the vibes are like shifting before our eyes in Chicago. Like it's like Ben Johnson getting angrier and angrier. Caleb Williams like still the same Caleb Williams. Now they're like everyone's like, all right, they're gonna have, now that they fixed their interior, they're gonna have a top 5 line, and Ben Johnson's like, we don't have a left tackle. So like and I remember saying like last year, I always just had this thought. Like, cause I think Ben Johnson, I'm bullish on him, but there is like this downside of where there were times where he tried to get way too cute as the play caller for the Lions. So like there is this outcome where I could see him just failing miserably, especially given that Caleb Williams has that kind of same floor where like he should just be really great, but like if it's bad, it's gonna be bad. So I'm kind of, the Bears got my attention now. Like I'm kind of treading lightly a little bit more. I like Loveland still, but
I think that's a good way to put it. This is a situation where there's a wide range of outcomes. That's why I do like Caleb and Rome Odunze, because they're going at a part in the draft where if you go look at a lot of your drafts last year, a lot of guys in that range, you end up dropping midseason anyway. That's kind of the point. You get aggressive. You draft a guy like Bill right now around, RB35. You have to take those swings because you're right. This could fail spectacularly. That's the floor, but there is a ceiling where it all clicks. Maybe it ends up somewhere in the middle, but I think with Caleb and Ben Johnson, it could be, spectacularly awesome or awful. But that's kind of why I like the situation is I'm just betting on the Moonbag case, the awesome end of the spectrum here. And again, it might take a couple weeks for it to actually click. So I'll have some patience, but the potential for this to be good is still there, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I just thought just in terms of stock, I just thought it was funny how like Ben Johnson was just super angry.
Yeah, I think he's just going to be like that. I think Bears fans are always going to be pessimistic, so it's always hard to read into anything coming out of camp or people's opinions. We just got to see week 1, and it's going to be Caleb versus JJ McCarthy. So it's in week 1. So that's kind of going to be the overreaction bowl, I think, heading into week 2, whatever happens in that game. Whichever quarterback loses, I think, people are going to be too harsh on, my opinion.
Ooh, that might be an interesting under spot.
Given
the state of the offenses there. But for me, one guy falling is Chris Godwin. That's just, we talked about him already, but when you really look into his injury, it wasn't just the dislocated ankle. Like he tore his shoulder up, and I mean there were all these like side injuries. There were like 4 different injuries on that one play, and then his ankle required a second surgery later into the offseason. So at this point, like this is an injury where it almost sounds like the team, there was this article in The Athletic that was really good and kind of talked about, what he was going through and throughout the rehab process and whatnot. But it was a very kind of, it almost struck like a conciliatory tone where it just, at one point it says like things probably aren't going to be the same. And it just sounds like, I don't know if there's the expectation that he's actually going to get back to what he was last year. And remember, he was the wide receiver 2 overall in his 7 games before going down, but that was in the Liam Cohen offense. And the year before that, he was he was healthy, but finished outside the top 36 in points per game. So like, I think it's much more likely we get somebody that resembles that. And then now you're talking about an unknown return date. So he's off. I'm off him. I know it's going to be tempting to people given the per game average last year, but got to draft based on 2025, not 24. Yep. And it's just, I mean, dislocated ankle, fractured fibula, torn deltoid, and high ankle sprain on that one play.
Yeah, and he turned down
That's absurd.
More money to go to the Patriots. You have to wonder if he knew he wouldn't pass a physical or something like that. So he's probably known. Obviously, he knows how severe his injury is. And then we all thought it was kind of weird that the Bucs drafted Mbuka in the first round. So the tea leaves have been there. And yeah, I would not be. How many games are you projecting him for? Like, I have him missing over half the season now.
I don't even think I'm that aggressive, but I think I still have him. I think I still have him like a 9-10 game, like, a little more than half. But there's also the possibility now because Mbuka is known for, he looked great as a receiver, and he obviously has the receiving talent to go in the first round. But great run blocker, so there's also a chance, and this is why I think these stashes never work out the way people want them to, is because if Mbuka is a great run blocker, that they could just make Godwin like the number 3 receiver. Like he might not come back to the number 2 role, and they could use Mbuka as a way to kind of save Godwin, some snaps on early downs and some run blocking snaps, even though he's good at it too. So there's a chance Godwin doesn't even get his role back from last year either. So yeah, there's just a lot of red flags, even with McMillan also missing. I think it's just. There are just other guys in that range. Like even if you're not, you could draft a receiver that's going to give you, year-long upside, or just have the flexibility to kind of, move, use that roster spot. Depends on your IR formats too. But also, if you just draft a receiver at a different spot, you could still get like a top 12 quarterback or tight end, a really valuable kind of onesie position guy in those kind of leagues there. So that's another reason, that's kind of hidden opportunity cost. It's like you could have just drafted a wide receiver that you don't have to worry about when he's going to come back and how well he's going to do, and then just go later on quarterback or tight end. Like this is kind of the draft in a year to do that. So I'm really not liking these like wide receiver stashes like Godwin, Ayuk, Watson, whoever this year. All right. Tight end, let's close it out. Who's falling at the tight end position?
There wasn't too much to pick from, so I'm just going to pick on Mike Gesicki here. His ADP has dropped like a full round the past couple weeks. I think, bringing in Noah Fant certainly didn't help him. Fant doesn't move the needle too much at this point, but it does make it more crowded there. And, the Bengals always keep, 5-6 tight ends. We'll see. You floated the idea that my boy Greg Dulcich ends up there, so we'll see if they scoop up.
Not on an active roster, but yeah, the practice.
Well, somewhat, yeah, just existing. Have rights to him. They just love having a ton of tight ends, so it just limits Gesicki's ceiling, especially right now. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are healthy. Yosavash, could be even better this year. So Gesicki's a guy that he had a solid 2024, but just heading into the season, not getting great vibes with him. So I've been kind of lowering him a tad these past couple weeks.
Yeah, I did like a deep dive on that whole situation a week ago because I just like, oh my God, all these, like you said, 5-6 tight ends. So it's like Sample's pretty much locked into his same role he was in last year. He's going to be the blocking tight end. And then now it's essentially like Fant is going to be the guy that was playing the Eric All role. Like that's why they essentially got him. That allows Gesicki. What they're trying to do is avoid Gesicki being a tell, and Tanner Hudson, who would be the backup to him, being a tell. So yeah, basically Gesicki, his routes would decrease a little bit because if you look at the first half of the season, if you look at before All went down, Gesicki was like around 45-50%, and then he bumped up to like 55, 60, 65. So yeah, he should be getting bumped down with Fant kind of taking over that role.
I would think Tanner Hudson would be the biggest tell of them all. If Tanner Hudson's in, it's a pass play, and it's going to Tanner Hudson.
Yeah, right. I mean, Gesicki is the same thing, except it's not always going to Gesicki.
Right.
But, yeah.
Exactly.
And Greg Dulcich is the same. That's why even though he balls out in the preseason, it's like he's essentially just a big, slow slot receiver that tips your hand instead of a fast tight end. But Evan Ingram for me, and to be clear, his ADP hasn't budged. I mean, he caught a 58-yard pass. Hasn't done that in a regular season since 2020. Yeah, tight end 8 in Fantasy Pros real time. But I don't think he should be. For one, he played less than 50% of the snaps with the first team offense. And there's a pretty large sample too of snaps especially for a preseason first team offense. And then he ran a route about 53% of the time with the first team offense. And I don't think I hope it's not that low. I think I have it projected around 60, 65. But this was kind of something I foresaw just because of how the Broncos operate. They tend to have a separate role for blocking tight end, receiving tight end. So I think this is bad news for Ingram. Also, I mean, it doesn't help that aside from that 58-yard catch, he cut no passes. That was only catch, and he only had 2 targets on 25 routes. That probably means nothing, but it just shows that Denver, their offense is upgraded everywhere this year. So that is the floor. I think they'll make a much more concerted effort. Like they're not going to tip their hand on what they're going to do with Ingram, especially after he broke one off for 58 yards. But I still don't think he's tight end 8 material. I don't think he'll give you that consistency, even if he ends up finishing, as like a top tight end 8, tight end 10. I think his consistency will be that of like a tight end 15-ish. Tight end 20. Yeah. So best ball, you could justify it, but I mean, I'm also like 5 spots lower than the consensus in best ball. So he's just a guy I really don't draft, but so that's one of those guys that, if you kind of want to let other people kind of trip themselves up, I think you just go ahead and let them have that headache that's going to be Evan Ingram.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want 4 catches and 40 yards and no touchdowns, he is definitely your guy. I was joking with you at our event, but how soon into their game do we start seeing Adam Troutman trending on X?
Oh my goodness! I mean, at this point, it will be like the third tight end too. It'll be like Troutman, and it'll be like, but why is Lucas Kroll still getting snapped? Caden Preekshorn or somebody like it was like.
We already know Troutman's getting the start. Nate Atkins is out. Lucas Kroll.
Games,
Caleb Lohner. Oh my God, I should have drafted him in our rookie draft. But Lucas Kroll will be the guy that really puts people over the edge, I think.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a good problem to have in Denver, but the tight end 8 is rich. I mean, I just don't know if the consistency will be there. And he's averaged like under 9 yards a catch the last 2 years. So like a 58-yarder, I don't know if he ever.
His main selling point was the high floor. Yeah. And that might not. I mean, he still might have a high floor, but that is kind of in question now. So that's kind of why. I'm shying away too. And again, you're spending top 10 tight end capital on him. Like, what are we doing here? He still might end up as the tight end, 12, but that probably won't win your league.
Yeah, and like I said, there's guys that you could probably get more consistency from. Like a Dallas Goedert probably also could put up tight end 12 numbers, but a much higher floor. And then you got, if you want to take a shot, you got guys like Brenton Strange is going to be out there.
His replacement.
Yeah, right. Who else? And even probably just like even the guys that just are unsexy from last year, like Zach Ertz, probably just have the same season this year until he gets hurt. it's going to be him and John Bates again. Sinat is probably going to get no snaps, it seems like.
Yeah.
So,
or the two rookies being drafted after him, that have
right
and like upside.
Yeah. Tyler Warren, Loveland, and then you still got Kyle Pitts lurking too. So yes, flavor of the tight end sleeper flavor of the month. But Ingram just as a precarious position because he's at a onesie spot. I think what it really does it. It's if he's a wide receiver, it's like okay, well it's one of many. But the fact that like if you draft him at 8, like sometimes there's like a whole round goes by or before another like tight end 9 gets drafted and. It could be even at that point in the draft, it could be it could cost you. So yeah, Evan Ingram is a faller, and that is going to do it for our Yahoo live event recap for the Fantasy Flex out there in Chicago. Shouts again to our boy Ethan. Congratulations on taking home the belt and our risers and fallers for 2025 with the preseason in the books and roster cuts happening as we speak. That is going to do it for this episode of the Fantasy Flex presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review so you don't miss an episode all season long. Starting week 1, we'll have all our player projections, all our fantasy previews ready to go right here on the channel. Don't forget to check out fantasylabs.com for all of our fantasy football content. Promo code FLEX20 gets you $20 off an NFL sub right now. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. And once again, thank you to our sponsor, Yahoo Fantasy, the best place to play fantasy football. Until next time, let's get this money.